She had eyes on the target, so why wasn't she pulling the trigger? The wind hissed across the ridge like a warning, dragging flecks of snow sideways into her scope. Brooke didn't flinch. Her cheek remained pressed to the frozen rifle stock, body fused with the jagged slope beneath her. She had trained her pulse to run at 100.0 BPM, no more, no less, calm in the storm. Silent in the watch. Below, the compound stirred. Guards paced slowly, unconcerned. Cigarette smoke curled from the lip of a rooftop, catching light in the dawn haze. It was almost peaceful till you noticed the rhythm of their patrols, the layered weaponry, the antenna mast, barely upright, a communications uplink, maybe already transmitting, maybe not. Her breath hovered in her chest, a voice crackled in her ear. Reaper 1, 2 minutes to second rise, no name, no chatter. That was their rule, speak only when it shifts the mission. But Brooke didn't respond. She adjusted the bolt by a millimeter, registered the air density, and aligned her scope. The shot would be long, but not out of reach, if it came, because that's what made Brooke different from the others. She didn't pull when she wanted to. She waited until the moment asked her to. The sniper's creed isn't about action, it's about presence and patience. But still, why hadn't the call come yet? She watched as two new figures emerged from the compound's inner gate, marked SUVs, windows dark, tires still steaming. One of the men stepped out confidently. He didn't look around, didn't flinch. Command posture, the kind of man who never expected to be watched. Her finger floated near the trigger guard. Another voice broke through. Reaper 2 in position. Breach team holding. Then silence again. That was good, but it also meant something was shifting. Plans that stretch seconds too long begin to fray. Especially with snow like this, falling harder now, distorting the optics, blurring the edges of danger. She adjusted her hood. Waited. There were moments in a mission where your presence outweighs your action. And for Brooke, this was one of them. That's when the scout appeared. Not in her crosshairs. In her peripheral. Boots, cracking frost. A light monoscope sweeping the ridge. Closer than comfort. Trained. Not one of the compound's lazy sentries. No, this one knew how to track heat, movement, likely fallback arcs from a sniper's shot. He was 15 meters away. Brooke didn't move. Not when he paused. Not when he turned his head. Not even when a pebble rolled from under his boot and bounced past her elbow. Some would call that bravery. Brooke didn't. She called it duty. The scout moved on. She blinked once, not to relax but to reset. Snow-crusted, the lip of her rifle and her gloves stiffened from cold. She made a soft adjustment to the scope with a tap of her thumb. Below, the rooftop was changing. A case was being unloaded. Long, heavy, likely a transmission relay, and next to it stood a man who wasn't carrying anything. Not a worker, not a guard. She whispered into her mic, just once. Signal shift. No response. But the breath she released misted out into air colder than truth. Brooke recalibrated. Wind, humidity, angle. She tracked a new movement. A tablet sweeping the sky. Another man pointing. Another standing back. Then she saw him. The man she had studied the night before. Clean jacket. Confident gait. A planner, not a fighter. The advisor. Not the warlord but the one who connected him. And now he was giving orders. Orders that would reach across continents, across battlefields, if she didn't stop him. Still no. Command. The snow blurred. Thickening. Her breath shallowed. The moment was closing. But the war has never been about clear lines. It's about instinct, the ability to feel when the world shifts, and to shift with it. She adjusted for wind. Half-click to the left. A breath in. Then, the shot. It broke the air and disappeared into the valley before the sound caught up. She saw him buckle through the glass, not fall, fold. As if something essential inside had let go. The rooftop, scattered guards ducking, shouting, weapons raised. But the silence that followed her shot wasn't chaos, it was activation. The mission was no longer theoretical. The breach was now live, and she had made it so. Why did she move if no one saw her? Because sometimes you don't run from danger. You run to meet it head-on. Brooke's shot had lit the fuse. She didn't stay to admire the strike. She never did. Her body slid from her perch, a slow, practiced pivot low along the rock face. No panic, no wasted motion. She knew what was coming. They would be looking for her now. Not exactly, but close enough to matter. A second perch waited for her. Tighter, wetter, less visible from the compound, but with a clearer line on the southern flank. It wasn't designed for comfort. It was designed to survive 5 minutes longer than the hunt. Snow slipped beneath her chest plate as she slithered between granite slabs, water pooling beneath her from melt and body heat. Her rifle settled ahead of her, guided by instinct. The camouflage netting dragged like soaked canvas, stiff and silent. She re-anchored her elbows, checked her sling, reset her vision, and then she saw it, a machine gun nest, half camouflaged behind an aging shed, its barrel angled toward the outer gate, right where Reaper team would punch through. It had stayed quiet through recon, hidden from thermal, buried behind corrugated steel. Now it was waiting. She found the gunner, crouched low, helmet barely visible above the sandbags, scanning the incline, unaware, still holding his shot, still breathing in peace. But peace is a fragile thing. Her second round landed with no mercy. The impact lifted him backward, folding him in two, spilling him over the rear of the mount. The belt-fed weapon jerked sideways, no fire released, no alarm raised. The nest had died before it could speak. Brooke adjusted, inch by inch. Her breath remained low, focused. That's when the call came. Finally, the voice in her ear. Overwatch. Confirm rooftop suppressor neutralized. She didn't raise her head, just whispered. Already on next. Her hands moved before her words finished. Reposition, scan, adjust. The rooftop guard, scrambling behind the ventilation stack, had no time to anchor. Brooke's shot met him mid-movement. The body dropped silently. One twitch, then stillness. Each pull was measured. No adrenaline, no noise in the mind, only presence. One overwatch, alone, covering lives she couldn't see, clearing paths she'd never walk. Below, the team surged forward, boots against snow, silhouettes darting between concrete and wire. She felt it, not as pride, but alignment. This was the role. Not glory, not recognition, clarity, the difference between almost and done. She scanned again, and that's when she saw the warlord. Just a flicker, a tall silhouette vanishing behind the courtyard stairs, fur-lined collar, confident posture. Not rushed, not aware, not yet. But he would be. Brooke noted the path, calculated angles. She had the line, then lost it. Too many crossbeams. No clean shot, not yet. She adjusted again, blinked, and that's when the radio cut out. No warning. One clipped syllable from Reaper 1, then nothing. Not static, not interference, just absence. Brooke tapped her mic once, twice, switched channels. Dead. Still. Her breathing didn't change, only her pulse shifted. Not in fear, in readiness. She was now the only Overwatch, and no one could tell her what came next. Wind howled across the ridge, like a scream choked by distance. Then, movement. Scouts, two of them, advancing from the northeast ridgeline. They wore snow-adapted gear, boots with tight tread, faces marked with calm professionalism. These were not locals, not random guards. These were hunters. One of them carried a thermal wand, sweeping left to right in arcs across the rocks, headed straight for her fallback. She did not panic. She became smaller. A breath, then another. She'd masked her heat signature with foil, doused any metallic sheen, covered the scope lens with matte black netting. But perfection doesn't exist. The first scout knelt, examined a depression in the snow, then looked up slope right, toward her. She did not flinch. She counted the fog rising from his breath. 4 seconds in, 2 out. He moved again. 15 meters, then 12. The second scout angled to cover him, not casual, not sloppy. These two knew what they were doing. Brooke measured trigger pull in her fingers, not yet lifted. Her breathing became glacial. 8 meters, then 6. The first scout passed inches from her elbow. Fog from his exhale spilled across her cheek like a whisper, and still, she did not move. They stepped over her hide like she was part of the mountain. They never knew how close they came to disappearing forever. She didn't raise the rifle. She didn't exhale fully until a full minute after they passed. Not because she was afraid, because discipline meant knowing when not to act. She felt the ache in her knees now, the wetness refreezing under her chest, the weight of silence. Still, no radio, still no orders. The warlord had moved inside. She had lost visual, but her scope remained steady, eyes on. That was her promise. No one saw her fire, no one saw her move, and no one ever would. She didn't know if they were alive, but she stayed anyway, because that's what you do when your rifle is the only promise left. Snow fell harder now, thick, wet flakes that clung to every surface and dulled every sound. The valley turned soft around the edges, like it was slowly being erased. Brooke stayed motionless, still no radio, still no voice. The last transmission had cut mid-syllable, and that silence weighed more than any bullet. She scanned the compound again. No muzzle flashes, no team movement, no confirmation. She should have heard the breach by now, should have heard shouts, grenade blasts, even the thud of boots storming stone. Instead, nothing. Just a compound. Still intact. Still quiet. Still. Waiting. Brooke's thumb tapped her rifle. Body once. She wasn't doubting the mission. She was doubting time. Because time is the sniper's real enemy. Not the cold. Not the wind. Not even the men who might be hunting you. Time dulls clarity. Time erodes truth. Time makes you question everything you once swore you'd never hesitate on. She blinked twice, slow and steady, then scanned the upper windows again. And that's when she saw it. A flicker, barely a reflection. Just a sliver of motion against the third-story pane. A head ducking away. Fast, sharp, intentional. Not a guard, a runner. Brooke shifted her scope, followed the angle. A fire escape on the east side, snow-covered, rusting at the base but still intact, leading down to a back alley. She swept lower and saw the vehicle. A black Hilux, parked neatly in shadow, covered with a tarp. The kind of vehicle you don't park unless you're planning on using it in a hurry. Escape. She breathed in once. This wasn't in the brief. The warlord was supposed to be inside, supposed to be surrounded. But this move, this wasn't panic, it was preparation. He had known. She didn't say a word. Didn't need to. She just moved, pulled her rifle back slowly, packed it into its short configuration, drew her sidearm, hooked it low along her hip, and began crawling again, downhill. The snow slicked her elbows, her boots moved sideways, not down, always at an angle, always slow. From above, she'd vanish into the rocks. From the valley, she'd be just another drift. 1 inch at a time. She reached a cluster of birch trees at the midway point, took cover behind a fallen log. Checked the Hilux again. Still there. Still covered. But the runner was gone. That meant he was inside, or worse, already moving. Brooke calculated. Her team hadn't breached. The escape was active, and if that man reached the next valley over, extraction would be impossible. Whatever intelligence he carried, Droot's names, signals, it would vanish across the border. She could wait, but waiting wouldn't stop him. So she moved again, this time faster, not reckless, but with purpose. The way you move when hesitation becomes a threat. 15 minutes later, she was just 50 meters from the alleyway, close enough to see the front quarter panel. Close enough to smell oil in the snow, close enough to hear voices. Two. Speaking fast, not yelling. Just focused. One of them was speaking English, not fluent, not native, but clear enough to hear. 10 minutes to signal handoff. Brooke exhaled, and just like that, the mission changed. She unzipped her side pouch and pulled out a micro-drone. Silent flight, heat-masked visual. She launched it low over the snow with a flick of her wrist, guiding it with her left hand as it skimmed toward the alley's edge. A soft green blink. Then visuals. She saw them. 3 men, one pacing, one on a sat-phone, and the third, the warlord, not hiding, not crouched, just waiting, like someone who was always one step ahead. Brooke marked the route. There was no sniper perch here, no ridge. This would be different. It would require movement, it would require noise, it would require risk. And maybe that's what made it real, because Brooke had trained her whole life for the shot. But no one trains you for the moment after. The moment where silence turns to footsteps. Where cold turns to heartbeat, where the rifle is no longer enough, and the mission becomes personal. She moved again, flanked wide, came up along a storage unit, concrete walls, a clear edge. She drew the rifle, again, assembled fast, checked her corners, then eased it into firing position. 1 breath in, 2 to target. Acquired, wind stable, trigger half pulled, then a shout, from the alley. One of the men had spotted something. Not her. The drone. She watched him raise his weapon, and in that instant everything shifted. She had to act, but not from a plan, from instinct. So she did what she never does. She ran toward them. She had spent her whole career hiding in the shadows, but now the shadows needed a war cry. Brooke moved like thunder before sound. Her boots struck the frozen gravel in a sprint so sharp the wind barely caught her. Rifle hugged tight to her chest, vision locked. Every step she took made her more visible, more human, but she didn't care. She wasn't hiding anymore. The drone's feed jittered once, then cut out. Signal burned. One of the men had clipped it mid-air with a burst from his rifle. Smart, fast, trained. Two. Late. Brooke came around the corner like a whip, dropped to one knee behind a rusted barrel, and drew a bead on the closest man, the one who'd fired. He was already turning, already raising his weapon. But Brooke's round was faster. One shot, center mass. He twisted backward into the snow like a puppet with cut strings. Then chaos. The second guard shouted, ducked, sprayed fire wildly toward the barrel. Chunks of concrete and metal exploded behind her, but Brooke didn't flinch. She moved, rolled low, came up firing. 2 rounds, chest, neck. He collapsed sideways into the tarp-covered hillocks, his body jerking against the frame before slumping under the wheel, and then silence again, except for the one sound she'd expected. Running. The third man, the warlord, wasn't frozen. He wasn't shocked. He was escaping. Already through the gate at the alley's far end. Sprinting toward a side passage she hadn't clocked. Damn. She gave chase. Snow kicked up around her knees, wind slicing through her vest. She vaulted the second body, cleared the tailgate, and surged forward, rifle slung, pistol drawn. 10 meters ahead, the gate clanged. He was through it. She slammed into it seconds later, locked, a steel latch, reinforced. She couldn't waste time. So she didn. Single quotes. 2 steps back, 1 hard kick forward. Metal groaned. Again. Boot, center mass. The gate gave on the third strike, bursting open with a rusted screech. She surged into the next alley. Nothing. No figure. No movement. He was gone. Until footprints. Fresh, in the snow. Right edge, turning left. She followed, heart steady, breath fast, but trained. The alley opened into a courtyard. Quiet too. Quiet. She paused, shifted right, then crack, then a gunshot, a tripwire. She froze, looked down, too late. A flashbang went off. To her left, bright enough to white out the world, loud enough to knock her sideways. She hit the wall hard, ears ringing, world spinning. But not out, not yet. She blinked. Pain dust, cold, her left ear gone dead. But she rolled, moved, instinct more than vision. A shadow appeared above her, the warlord, pistol drawn, but not shooting, staring, as if confused. You're the ghost, he muttered. Accent Eastern, eyes unreadable. You were supposed to stay on the ridge. Brooke didn't reply. She reached for her sidearm. Too slow. He stepped on her hand, pressed the pistol to her temple, and paused. You don't know what you just stopped, he said. Brooke locked eyes with him, saw the arrogance, saw the certainty, and beneath it something else. Desperation. Whatever signal he was meant to give, it mattered, not just to him, to them. She didn't know what or who yet, but she would, if she survived this. The pistol clicked, but didn't fire. Safety. He was rushing. She used it. Hard. Her free hand slammed into his knee, twisted, pulled. He stumbled sideways. She launched upward, twisted her body, and drove her shoulder into his ribs. They both went down. She landed hard on top, fought the urge to pause, drew her blade, not to kill, to mark a deep cut across his thigh, enough to make him scream, enough to make him bleed. He tried to reach for his pistol again, but Brooke's knee met his wrist. Bone cracked. She grabbed the weapon. Stood, pointed it back at him. Now you're the one on the ground. She keyed her emergency beacon. Finally. The radio crackled. Brooke Reaper team is alive. Breach was delayed. Are you? She spoke into it steady. Target secured. Lone contact. Possible signal relay in motion. I need extraction now. There was silence on the other end. Then, copy that. QRFN route. 2 mics. Brooke exhaled. Deep. Sharp. Not relief. Release. Her. Pista stayed trained on the man below her. He wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking at the blood pooling beneath his leg, watching his own control bleed out. I had everything arranged, he said. They'll keep coming. Brooke didn't blink. Then so will I. The warlord laughed once. Dry. Do you even know what you stopped? She leaned closer. Voice ice. No, but I will. Then the rotors began to whisper over the ridge, and Brooke stood there, alone, unshaken, snow falling around her like judgment. She thought the bullet was the ending, but the warlord's silence was just the beginning. The cold faded first, then the sound, then the lights. The medics had checked her over in the evac bird. Nothing broken. Ringing in her left ear would last a while, they said. She didn't care. She wasn't listening for comfort. She was listening for truth. The warlord sat 3 chairs away in the hangar's black site interrogation cell, stripped of weapons, left leg wrapped, right wrist broken, dignity intact. Too intact they hadn't even needed shackles. He hadn't tried to run again. He just waited. Brooke stood behind the two-way mirror, arms crossed, jaw locked. She didn't like being off the ground, didn't like the lights, didn't like sitting still, but they'd asked her to stay, said they needed her to hear it live, not as a report, but as a witness inside. The interrogator leaned forward, civilian, gray hair, no rank. He slid a folder across the table like it weighed nothing. Let's start with your transmission. Who was it for? The warlord smiled, didn't speak. The man opened the folder. Photos spilled across the table. Satellite shots, convoys, 2 faces circled in red. These men, your contacts, we know you were signaling them. Still, no answer. Just silence, and the faintest hint of amusement behind the warlord's eyes. Brooke's fingers twitched at her sides. She hated this kind of game. Out there in the snow, in the valley, it had been clear. 1 shot, 1 mission, but this was mud. The interrogator tried again. You were carrying encrypted devices. None of them pinged local towers. You weren't fleeing. You were triggering something. What was it? And that's when the warlord finally spoke. Soft, measured, like someone telling a bedtime story. You think I'm just a node, a switch, a low-level link in a broken chain. But I wasn't running because I was afraid. He leaned forward. I was running to hide from what I started. Silence. The room felt colder. Somehow, he continued, the signal wasn't mine. It was for them. Once sent, it spreads. 1 location to 10. 10 to 100. Dormant cells, programs, names. He smiled again, but this one carried something darker. You think I'm the threat, but I'm just the spark. The interrogator shifted. Brooke felt it in her chest. The dread that doesn't arrive with bullets but with implications. He kept speaking. Do you know what it costs to create men who aren't loyal to a flag, but to an idea? It takes time, decades, and pain. Lots of pain. But once it starts, you can't stop it. He looked straight at the mirror, right at her. You think you saved your team. You didn't. Brooke stepped back. Her mind was trained not to spiral, but it flickered now. What did he mean? The interrogator spoke again. Firm now. Names. Coordinates. Now. The warlord laughed, low. Hollow. You already had your shot. It landed, but you aimed too low. Brooke walked out of the observation room 10 minutes later. Couldn't stand the way his voice made the air feel thick. Outside, the hangar was dark. A storm rolled low on the horizon. Major Laramie was waiting for her black jacket, clipboard in hand. No salutes here. Just hard truths and quiet orders. We debrief at 0600, but you're not going home yet. Brooke raised an eyebrow. Why? The Magus glanced down at the paper in her hand. Because intel just confirmed what he started wasn't local. It wasn't even regional. The relay was global. Brooke's stomach tightened. Targets. Laramie nodded once. Military outposts. Diplomatic centers. Civilian structures with sensitive tech. And one more. She handed Brooke a file. Thin. Unlabeled, but inside a photo. Satellite image. A training base in Montana. American soil. Brooke's mouth went dry. We think there's a plant, maybe more than one. Sleeper agents. Moved in years ago. Waiting for a signal. She looked up slowly. We're asking you to go dark. Brooke, undercover. Find the thread before it pulls the whole fabric down. Brooke didn't blink, didn't ask why her. She already knew, because when the quiet ones do move, they move with purpose. When the major handed her a burner phone, now, she had once hunted enemies through a scope. But now, the danger wore her own uniform and shook her hand at morning muster. The training base at Fort Lark wasn't on any public map. It sat beneath the snow line in northern Montana. Old timber, buildings surrounded by dense pine and radio silence. Officially, it was a cold weather combat prep center. Unofficially, it was a filtration zone, where new officers went to prove they could handle isolation, where the best were sorted from the good and the worst, could hide in plain sight. Brooke arrived undercover. New name Elena Rowe, civilian contractor, former recon with Joint NATO Task Force experience, hired to teach long-range navigation and survival for the winter quarter. It was a perfect disguise, because it was close to the truth, too. Close. Her boots touched snow 3 days after the warlord's capture. The chill felt the same, but everything else had changed. No scope, no rifle, no ridgeline, to keep her sane. Now she was in the middle of it, among them, watching, listening, waiting. Her first briefing was quiet, just 3 instructors, a major named Rudd, and a tech sergeant who looked more like a librarian than a soldier. Brooke Lena kept her voice low. Her profile was combat decorated but tired. That kind of persona gets sympathy, not suspicion. The students arrived the next day, 30 of them, fresh faces, most except a few. She watched their eyes, watched how they stood when no one was looking, watched who scanned exits. Not instructors. 2 stood out by day 3, a tall corporal from Georgia, Callum Price, too quiet, too clean, never asked questions, but never missed a move during drills. And a woman, Morales, former signals, reassigned to Recon. Her jacket was always zipped high, her eyes always calculating. Brooke didn't move on them. She waited, she taught her lessons, marked trails, cold water crossings, fire in snow, but always. She watched, and then it happened. Day 6, night, nav exercise. 8. Teams sent into the back forest with maps, flares, and IR trackers. Return expected by 02001. Team Price and Morales didn't come back. No radio contact, no flares. Nothing. By 0300. Instructors started prepping for a search, but Brooke was already moving. She didn't wait for orders. She knew how these things happened. Disappearance is rarely a mistake. Not here. She slipped out in blackout gear, cutting through the tree line west of the expected trail. No lights. No prints. Only instinct. And after an hour, she found them, not unconscious, not lost, but talking, not on military radios, on an encrypted civilian repeater, small, camouflaged, and definitely unauthorized. Brooke stayed hidden in the trees. Listened, and what she heard cracked the world. Open, he said, the signal already spread. We're just waiting for the code word. Montreal. No, that was the old trigger. It changed. It's not a city anymore. It's a person. Brooke's breath froze. She leaned forward, just enough to see their faces. Calm, focused, not afraid. True believers. She recorded 5 minutes, then slipped back the way she came. Didn't confront them, didn't try to stop it. Not yet, because what mattered now wasn't catching them. It was finding out who else already knew. The next morning, Morales and Price returned to base, claimed they'd gotten turned around during a snowdrift. Instructors nodded. No discipline, no suspicion, no suspicion. Everything felt normal. But Brooke felt it now. The chill that didn't come from snow, the kind that comes when a mission doesn't just surround you, it includes you. She uploaded the recording to her encrypted terminal. The reply came fast. Confirm time and voices. Will analyze for known code names. Stay embedded. Do not act. Further contact inbound. Then he was right. This is bigger than one escape. Brooke leaned back, closed her eyes. Her cover was solid. Her instincts were sharper than ever, but her gut said one thing. This wasn't infiltration, that this wasn't sabotage. This was an activation. And whatever had been sleeping in the shadows was waking up. She had once hunted ghosts in the dark, but now, the ghosts knew her name. Brooke felt it before she saw it. A shift in posture, a glanced long. The kind of silence that wasn't emptiness, but a presence just out of sight. Someone was watching her, and they weren't watching as a student, they were watching as a threat. It started with her room. She always locked her door, triple-checked the latch, the windows, the backup SIM, and the hollowed toothpaste tube. But on day 10, she came back from the training field and saw it. A single scuff mark on the wood floor. BOOTPRINT. Not hers. Someone had been inside, nothing taken. But the toothpaste tube was moved by 0.5 centimeter. Brooke didn't react, didn't show a flicker. She just stood there, staring at the room that looked the same, but wasn't. Then calmly, slowly, she reached under her cot and removed a second phone decoy unit and keyed in a single message. I've been made. The reply came 8 minutes later. No sender. Just a screen full of words. Confirm, exposure level, unknown, possible partial, staying embedded, then silence. No further orders. No extraction. Because there couldn't be. If she left now, the sleepers would scatter. And if this really was a coordinated activation across multiple bases, her presence was the only known thread. She had to stay. Even if it meant staying alone. By day 12, Price and Morales started acting different. They didn't confront her, didn't accuse, they just stopped pretending. No more polite smiles, no more casual remarks. During drills, they became shadows inside the light, and then came the test. A sudden night exercise, not scheduled, not briefed. Major Rudd called it a surprise evaluation. Officers split the teams. Assigned Brooke a trio to guide through navigation under duress. Morales was one of them. Price volunteered to lead. The next group, Brooke's instincts screamed, but she nodded, played the role, accepted the assignment. They left at 2,100 hours, snow falling in slow, deliberate sheets, visibility low, COMM. Encrypted. Morales walked behind her the whole time, said nothing, watched everything. End at 2,237, just past the Northern Ridge checkpoint. It happened. Morales stopped walking, said it flatly. You're not who they think you are. Brooke didn't turn around, didn't panic. She kept walking. Neither are you. Silence, then a click. Soft. Intentional. Brooke didn't have to see it to know what it was. Trigger pressure. Morales had drawn her. Weapon. Brooke moved like breath, dropped to the side. Snow exploded where her shoulder had been. She rolled once, drew her blade, too close for a pistol, and came up low, slashing forward. Morales fell back, weapon out, but she didn't fire again. She raised her hand instead. Wait. Brooke froze, blade just inches from Morales's neck. Why didn't you fire? Morales's face didn't change, but her voice cracked just slightly. Because I'm not with them. Not anymore. Brooke blinked. You were in the relay cell. I was. But I didn't send the signal. I decoded it. Morales lowered the pistol, let it drop into the snow. I know what they're planning, and I know who they're targeting next. Brooke didn't move, didn't speak, didn't lower the blade, then start talking. Morales did. And what she said broke every rule of war Brooke had ever known. They've stopped thinking in terms of countries. They think in triggers. A person speaks a word, or enters a building, or flips a switch, and entire systems collapse. Institutions, power grids, trust networks, they call it soft collapse. It's not sabotage. It's erosion. Slowly, quietly, until nothing left holds. Brooke's voice was ice. Who runs it? Morales hesitated. Then, no one. That's the terrifying part. It was started by design. Then it grew like a fungus. Cells connect only when they activate, but there's one name that keeps reappearing in their code drops. She reached into her coat slowly, pulled out a flash drive. Brooke took it. What name? Morales met her eyes. Yours. That night, Brooke sent the drive up the chain through a satellite burst in a stew-covered outpost. No reply came, which meant only one thing. She was on her own, and the enemy wasn't just inside the wire anymore. It might be inside her name. She went into the snow to find a signal. She came out knowing she was the signal. Brooke sat alone in the outpost. Comes shack, no heat, no backup, just static flickering across the satellite feed, and the flash drive burning cold in her palm. The name had been right there, buried in the metadata of 6 activation files. Not a command code, not a destination, but a trigger. Rotha Tread, not her real name, not even her cover, something older, something assigned, a black cell designation, a forgotten ghost from the files of Project Veil. And that's when she understood. She wasn't sent to stop the relay. She was sent to confirm it had succeeded. It wasn't treason, not in the traditional sense. It was design. She had been bred through chaos, shaped through missions where her name was redacted before she even reached the HELO. Every choice. She thought she made every battlefield. Every infiltration had been a test, not of her loyalty, of her pattern recognition. They needed someone who could walk into a broken system and sense the rot. And then transmit it back. She wasn't the hero. She was the diagnostic, and if she chose to vanish, the system would never know how deep the corruption had gone. If she spoke, the network would collapse, but so would the legend they had built around her. Morales sat across from her now. No, Longer enemy. No longer ally. Something else. A mirror. You could burn it all down. Brooke, the files, the bases, the cells, across 7 countries. But they'll come for you next. Brooke didn't look up. She just stared at the drive. Then they'll find me in the open. Not in the dark. You're going public. Brooke finally looked up. Double quotes. No. Not public. Louder than public. She didn't wait for approval. Didn't need it. She uploaded everything, the files, the activation map, the voice logs, even the command strings pointing to her own code name, into 6 hidden forums, 1 military whistleblower site, and a private server tied to a watchdog group in Switzerland. She tagged it with a single sentence. They trained me to find the rot. I found it, and it's everywhere. Within 48 hours, the leak detonated across the intel community. Cells began scrambling. Some went dark. Some detonated their own evidence. One NATO-affiliated training base in Norway self-evacuated inside the CIA. Files from Project Veil were quietly but it was too late. The signal had spread. This time, from her, they tried to trace her. Of course they did. She knew they would, but she had already disappeared, not into silence, not into death, but into myth. Epilogue: 6 months later. A SEAL team operating in Syria took sniper fire while pinned in a collapsed hospital. They called for air support, but what cleared the ridge wasn't a drone, it was a single shot. Perfectly timed. No one saw where it came from, only that it bought them 30 seconds and saved 6 lives. The team said the bullet struck from over 900 yards. Helm. No signature, no flash, but the casing they found, still warm in the snow, had a number etched on it. That reads soft, moral ending. Sometimes the loudest wars are fought in silence, not with bombs, or boots, or fire, but with the decision to reveal what was never meant to be seen. She was trained to be invisible, but in the end she chose to be undeniable.